Hi, my name is Nikki. This is The Interventionalist. And today I want to talk about something different than what my usual videos are like, and that is the experience of having an identity crisis. Because I'm currently having one in a way that I have never experienced before in my life, and I'm really struggling with it. And I honestly just don't, I haven't made a video in like 3 weeks, and a lot of the reason why is because of this. And so I'm just going to talk about it. Maybe it'll be helpful. Because if not, I don't feel like I can make anything. And this video might not make a lot of sense, to be completely honest, but I'm just going to talk about it anyways, because this identity, I don't even know if I would call it an identity crisis. It feels more like a void of identity, but it's affecting everything in my life. It's affecting the things that I like. It's affecting the way that I talk. It's affecting the fucking pitch of my voice. It's affecting the way that I feel related to my sexuality. It's affecting everything, and not in a negative way, but it's affecting it in a very like sobering way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just going to talk about it. I'm just going to try and explain it. So first, like the best thing that I could use to parallel like what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I feel like it's not even just like an identity crisis. It feels like a void, like where I held my self-concept, like all the things inside of me that held together a self-concept for me. So like an identity feels like it's just been kind of, I wouldn't even say dismantled, but removed. And the best way I could parallel it before I start talking is if you've had like a mental disorder and you've lived as both like an unmedicated version of yourself and a medicated version of yourself, I feel like this could be a similar feeling, because I know I'm bipolar too. When I got medicated, I also went through something like this. That took a lot of time. I have a video on my channel from like a couple years ago, and I was talking about how I sometimes missed my hypomania because it was like a part of my self-concept. It helped me predict the future. It helped me understand my own patterns because I had a lot of memory existing as this person. So I knew how to exist as that person because I knew who I was. I had the time and the experience to analyze myself and the patterns collected related to my past self to predict my life and what I need and wouldn't need and how I behave, and all of this stuff like was built on an unmedicated version of myself. And then I got medicated, and suddenly everything that really defined my daily life that I used to predict my future, my daily life, how I would feel about things, how I would react to things that I would want, who I was, had really just completely shifted, because I was no longer experiencing the daily experiences internally that oriented my world. And that was a lot of these like highs and lows between mania and depression. And I could predict the future a lot of the times related to my life. Predict not like prophetically, but based on pattern, because I had lived that way for so long. So I could tell you when I'm manic, I'll be like this. When I'm depressed, I'll be like this. I know how much time's going to likely pass in between, whatever. So when I got medicated, I was like, who the fuck, how do I live this way? How do I live this way? And a couple years ago too, I have something written on my website. I'll link it below. And I talk about how I need to say this again. I don't think this video is going to follow like any kind of through line. So this is just a heads up. A couple years ago, I wrote something on my website, and I'll link it below. And I talk about how I just don't know if I have any like not value, but use as a person if I'm not in pain. And it's because a lot of my identity and self-concept and the way that I perceived the world and relationships and attachments and how I navigated them was based on my past experiences that were the most pervasive in my daily life, the things that existed at the forefront of my brain all the time and like most impacted my body, obviously dictated a lot of my external life and the way that I perceived things. And because I had gone through like quite traumatic things, like for example, an abusive relationship, those heavy emotions, those like very intense, heavy emotions were often at the forefront of my identity, of the way that I thought, the way that I perceived the world. Somatically, those emotions were driving forces for me simply because they were the most intense internally. So a lot of the way that I navigated the world was based on the things most affecting me internally, and those were those emotions heavily dictated by trauma. And because of that, the way that I connected with people, the conversations that I would have with people, the words that I chose, like, were heavily influenced by what I was most affected by, which were those emotions. And in that thing that I had written, I like had this fear that without having those sort of emotions at the forefront that really navigated or like helped me navigate my life. They were like a compass because they were so impactful daily, that I wouldn't know how to connect with people the same way or connect to the same extent that I could, because how could I help? Like, okay, I don't know how much sense this is going to make. I feel like I sometimes don't know if there's any point in being unless you're helping someone. Like, what is the point of anything unless you can like help someone in some way or another? And a lot of the way that I connected with people to make them feel seen when I talked to them was by connecting to the parts of themselves that like really often are overlooked and need connecting to, which is usually the parts of themselves that are the most overwhelming with intense emotions, often negative emotions. And when I was consumed in a lot of ways by my own negative emotions, like the emotions like left over from trauma, they're at the forefront, I could use the intensity of those emotions and connect with other people. And it made me feel like even though I was in so much pain, that there was a purpose to it, because it allowed me to connect with others, and it allowed me to make other people feel seen in their own pain and their own intensity of emotions that can often be very isolating or lonely. And so it made me feel like there was, I don't know, like it gave me a purpose, a point. Like the analysis of my own emotions gave me the language to help others in a lot of ways, analyze their own emotions. And so it was the foundation of a lot of my connections, was like connecting to people through those really intense emotions. And it just like gave me a sense of purpose. And in the thing that I wrote, it's just like, I worry that if I'm not in a lot of pain, I won't have any purpose, because maybe I won't be able to help others the same way unless I'm also experiencing really painful emotions. And how can I help them then? Like the whole point is to help people. Like I don't know. That's just the way I've felt my whole life. And a couple years ago, like I started to heal a little bit from an abusive relationship, and I started to be less overwhelmed, and those emotions were less at the forefront. And because of that, I sort of lost my ability to connect with people as intensely or as well as I once had, because I had less intensity of my own to pull from to connect with other people's intensity. And it just made me feel different. Like I just didn't have sort of the vault of emotions to pull from that I had used for so long to connect with people, which a lot of the time was intense, overwhelming emotions like pain and longing and heartbreak and things like that. So I just felt like I would stutter when I was talking to people again, and I wasn't sure I was offering them anything of value, because if you're not helping someone in some way or another, I don't know, like, do you have any value to them? Is there any value to this conversation? It's not even about whether or not I was worthless or worth something. It was more like, am I useful? And a lot of my self-concept, I think, is built around being useful to people and like of service. And I worried that like the part of myself that allowed me to do that was gone because I was in less pain. So I just talked about how like I worry that my ability to like connect with others would be lessened if I wasn't in current pain. And I don't know. I like, whatever. I just adjusted. I like kept talking. And then, I just like wasn't actually that healed. I ended up like having really severe PTSD. And it just, whatever. So I never really had to sit in that and have to really build a new identity or world that didn't sort of revolve around those big emotions. My connections weren't really driven by those big emotions. The way that I connected with people wasn't really driven by those big emotions anymore. And so I ended up being overcome by them again. And so I just had to keep living that same way. And then I don't know. That's just a lot of my self-concept. But who am I if not a person overcome by those specific memories and emotions? Those like often traumatic memories and emotions. Who am I like without it? How do I navigate the world without the thing that's been at the forefront of my mind and of my body for so many years? It was a driving force, whether it was through fear or purpose, doesn't matter. They were driving forces behind my actions. Like whether I was afraid of being stuck in them forever, so I was always running towards the next thing, like living in a very urgent state, or I like was motivated by the need to make meaning of these emotions, and so I engaged in like endless self-analysis and tried to make meaning of it, and a lot of my videos are rooted in that. And suddenly, like, so much of the world that had been colored by these experiences and these emotions has just faded. I would say not even to gray. It's just like the color's been removed. I guess there's been like a color remover for a lot of the way that I see the world, because these emotions aren't like affecting my vision, I guess, anymore. And that's good, because I'm not sad. I'm not sad for the first time in a long time. I'm just really not overcome by the feelings that hurt me for a really long time, like sadness or longing or grief. And I think I don't know, I just was like really affected by those for most of my life for different reasons. And I'm so lucky to have finally reached a state of being where I feel okay. For the first time in my life ever, like in my adult life, since I've really been like a very cognizant person, I feel okay. And I've never felt that way, because I entered like a very deep depression at age like 9 or 10. And I do think, like, when you're bipolar, I'm pretty sure I've read this before, that young, like, children who end up having bipolar, or like who have latent bipolar, have something called cyclothymia when they're really young, which is like severe depression. And I think that's what it was. I was it happened overnight. I was a severely depressed kid, like in a way that is very uncommon. So I really built my identity around being like just realistically overcome by really intensely negative emotions. And it didn't make me a negative person. It just meant that the way that I connected most with people was driven by the things most affecting me, which was things like that. And so, again, it was like a foundation of a lot of the way I engaged with the world. How I attached to the world was impacted by those emotions, because they were so impactful to me. So everything that I did, it impacted, because that's who I was like from a very young age. And now I'm not sad. I'm medicated for the first time. It's been a few years since I've been medicated, but I'm medicated, and I haven't been manic in a long time. So I've developed a sense of self around that, but I'm no longer sad, and I'm no longer like overcome by the symptoms of like trauma somatically. And I'm no longer in a constant state of longing, like hoping to get to a point where I feel better and longing for better, and then being really in a state of urgency all the time, seeking better and searching for better and wanting to be of help to others, because maybe that will make me better. Maybe it'll make everything better. And suddenly I'm okay. I'm okay. I feel like I don't need anything else to feel stable, so I'm not seeking. And if I'm not seeking, then what am I doing? And if I'm not what I was, then who am I now? And like, what am I going to be? And if I don't have memory of living as this version of myself that I can't go back on to use to predict like how to go about my future, or what my future might look like, or what this stage of my life is, like I can look back on a past where like this, I've experienced a similar transition. I really don't have anything comparable to this. So I just feel like a fish out of water in my own life, in both like a really amazing way and a really confusing way. I feel more grounded than ever, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I wouldn't trade it for the stress of always like urgently seeking to find a way to make things better, or to be useful, or to make meaning of pain. It's just not worth it. It's just exhausting. But that also means I have to sit in a new sense of self where what am I doing? Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? It's not that I wonder what's the point. It's more so like I've always had a driving point, and it was like urgency, hoping for better life and to get better, like overcome these emotions so eventually they don't overrun me, or make use of them and help others. That was my driving point for things. And now that's not the point anymore. And I still feel devoted to doing these things. Like I want to still hopefully do things that can help others. And I like thinking and doing like analysis of things and people and whatever. But I just don't have the same driving desire, which was like hopefully trying to just survive or find a way to make the world better. So if I don't need to make the world better because suddenly things are like stable enough as they are, I don't know. Like, I just don't know what I'm, like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like it's pointless, but like, what's the driving factor? I guess this is how people just exist their whole lives. Like, you know how people will say like discipline shouldn't really come from motivation, it should come from devotion. Like, for example, going to the gym, you can't base around motivation because motivation is fleeting. It's like a feeling, and feelings are fleeting, but commitment is not fleeting. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship, it's about choosing each other every single day and making that commitment, because feelings are fleeting, and you'll have ups and downs. So it's about a disciplined devotion that's built on commitment and choice versus motivation. And a lot of my life has been rooted in motivation for all the reasons that I just said. And now it needs to be rooted in like committed discipline and devotion, and that's fine. I can do that. My life hasn't changed in the sense that I still do the same things every day and like I'm committed. It's just like they all feel different, and they just don't feel, I don't know, meaningful the same way. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, and that's a problem that I've never existed this way. I feel like very existentially sober, I suppose, is the way to put it. I'm not driven by the fantasy of improving my life by achieving something like being, I don't know, a sense of safety. Maybe it was like a relationship, friendship relationships. I don't know. I was just always like hoping to achieve something that would make everything better, right? So I was driven by like a lot of fantasy, I guess, vision of like better, I don't know. But I'm not driven by it anymore. So I just don't know. I don't know, but it's completely changed me. Like, it's made me feel like very sobered up towards reality in a way that is both very grounding and healing, and also disorienting. And I suppose that I just have to like reorient myself as this new version of myself, but I feel very uncomfortable. And like, I've tried to film videos for the past 3 weeks, and every time I sit down, like, I just feel like I don't have anything to say. And it's not because I don't think like things are pointless to talk about, but it's more so like everything that I had inside of me to talk from, a lot of the times, like those most currently impactful at the forefront emotions and experiences that were like painful, trauma based, that I've now healed, because they're healed, they've been like removed from me, and I don't have them to pull from. And so then what the fuck am I going to say? Like, where is it going to come from? There's nothing. There's nothing. And so I'll sit here and I'll try like for hours, and then nothing comes out of my mouth. And also, like, when I talk, I would like sit here and try and talk, and like it would actually, you know, when you get fatigue, if you have like a customer service voice, if you've ever worked in like customer service, if you do it all day for like a really long time, like your throat will literally hurt because it's like fatigued. You're like trying to keep on like a very specific tone of voice that fits the moment, or that version of yourself when you're in that moment, the identity you have when you're in customer service mode. I would sit here and talk and like try and make it sound the same way I guess I used to, and it like would actually cause my throat to like hurt, like as if I think I was trying to put on like a different tone or a different pitch, and I don't know if my voice actually sounds any different to like audibly to be heard. I don't know, but speaking wise, like I think it's just indicative to me that either way, like I feel like I had to put on kind of like a face or some form of performance that matched how I felt before, and I just don't feel that way anymore. And I guess this is like the consequence of getting better, is that my whole world had really been affected by the things most affecting me, and that was a lot of traumatic experiences and emotions, and now it's not. So the way that I'm attaching to the world has just like completely started over, and I don't know. And it's very sobering because I have been experiencing or like thinking about my sexuality in a way that I never had before. That's been like a little bit difficult, and that is like coming to terms with the fact that, this is going to sound weird, but that I'm really a lesbian. Like, I know that. I've known that. I've been out as lesbian for years now, and I have gone through the identity crisis of like, as you come out, like like my confusing experience even with gender. I've talked about, there's videos on here about that. Like I've been confused after I came out as lesbian, related to like gender conformity or like expectations, and then like no longer being driven by those things because you're in a new like era of life or different community with all whatever. And for the first time, like my relationship to my lesbianism has felt very sobering, and it's like okay, it's no longer about like who am I going to be as a lesbian. I know who I am as a lesbian. It's that I'm going to forever be a lesbian, and suddenly I'm very hyper aware of the fact that that means logistically likely to experience a lot of loneliness. And I don't mean that in a depressing way. Like, I really don't. Like, in a, oh my God, it's so lonely to be a lesbian. Every marginalized group and minority group feels this way, especially if you're a minority within a minority, right? Like, you feel more and more and more isolated. It's just the sobering realization that when it comes to things like relationships in all capacities, friendships, romantic, it's going to be a lot harder to logistically come across those. And that has been really sobering for me to realize. And it's made me question, in a lot of ways, the reality logistically as a lesbian of having really high or strict standards in relationships. And this like sobering up of reality, like not, I guess, suppose, I don't know if I lived in a fantasy, but a little bit. Like, I guess I didn't always realize or like acknowledge just how much like being in such a small group of people, like of lesbians, and then also just like how I don't come across gay women just like in everyday life. It's also something you can never really just assume. Like, you live in a different kind of headspace all the time because you really can't. It's not the majority, so it's not an assumption you operate with. And because of that, I'm just realizing like I'm going to have logistically a lot less opportunity to meet people that make me feel seen or connected to. And if that's the case, how realistic is it to not settle? Because, for example, straight people or people who can be in like heterosexual relationships, straight relationships, there's so many people all of the time to connect to like romantically. Not saying it's like necessarily you find the right person all the time. It still can be difficult, but it doesn't matter because you have an increased supply. So like you have way more people to interact with and meet, and you have such an increased likelihood of meeting people that you could connect with that way. And you can kind of operate under an assumption like in daily life that if you are, for example, straight, that when you're out and there's like a bunch of men around, whatever, that there's a good chance that you could probably, if you wanted to approach them and like make a move or whatever, or there could be potential interest there. That happens to me all the time. Like it's part of the reason it's been on my mind. Cause like I go to things, for example, I play a lot of volleyball and I'll go to all these tournaments and like men will approach me quite often and I'm not interested in them, but it became more and more, I don't know. It just like was hitting me more and more that if I was straight, logistically, my chances of meeting someone and being able to be honestly picky would be a lot higher because there's such a high supply and it's so consistently not that difficult to find myself in spaces to even like interact with those people, or that like supply of people happens everywhere all the time because it is the majority and it is often the assumption. And so this has been happening a lot. It always has, but it's been happening a lot. And I'm like, oh, wow, like this, it's very rare that I'm in spaces where there's gay women or like other lesbians. And even if it is like, it's not hardly ever something you can look at someone and be like, oh yeah, they are, I can tell, right? And so you'd have to go over and like straight ask them. And it's just weird. You're in a weird position. It's very different. And so the supply is so low. And I just became very aware of like how often there is never a lesbian around or gay women around, and definitely not in a way that is like obvious. And so logistically, that does mean that it might be harder to find someone who can fit all of your standards or like needs. And the older you get, the more precise you get related to what you need in relationships, all kinds of relationships. You get more clarity with age and experience. And I'm getting older. I'm 25 now. I've had a good amount of relationship experience. I have a lot clearer of an idea of like what I need in relationships, friendships and romantic relationships. But to speak of like romantic relationships, I have a very clear idea now in a lot of ways, not in a rigid way, but in a much more precise way. And the more precise you get in your life, the smaller the number is of people that will fit you because you're less porous. You know, you have stricter boundaries. You're not willing to compromise on certain things that you should have probably never compromised on. And that's not to say like, I'm not talking about rigidity. It's just like a lot of us will compromise in relationships early on, if we struggle with like feeling like we're going to be alone, or we don't know ourselves well enough, we don't know our needs, we don't know our desires, so like anything is okay, I guess, because I don't know anything about myself, so I guess it doesn't really matter, like whatever they are is, I guess, what I can need. It's I can make it work. But the more you learn about yourself, the more that doesn't work. And so the older I get as a lesbian, the more I'm aware that, yeah, it's just not going to be that easy to meet someone who, as I get clearer and more precise in what I do want in a partner and I need, to meet someone like that, like to end up logistically in the same room as somebody like that. Whereas to end up in the same room as a man, if I was straight, who could fit my standards, I guess, like if I was straight, would be so significantly higher. So significantly higher. There's even times where like men will approach me and talk to me, and sometimes I'll be like, you do have traits of a person that I would want. I'm so unattracted to you. But it just like puts into perspective for me, like, damn, this is everywhere. The chances are so much higher of being able to be picky and find someone. And then as a lesbian, it's like, if you are precise and picky, you might have to really accept that it's going to be really hard to find someone. And that sucks. That just like is like a really weird thing that I'm coming to terms with. And I don't mean that in a depressive or pessimistic way, but I worry that, do you see these pants? I'm wearing pajama pants. I worry that will increase the likelihood of like long-term settling in lesbian relationships because of scarcity. And if there's a scarcity, you most likely are going to have to compromise a lot more to make relationships work with people, if they're the only people around you that are even gay, and you don't want to be alone and you want a relationship, and they're quite literally one of the only people around you that are gay, and they're the closest to like what would work in a relationship with you, you're more likely to overlook some major, like potentially major incompatibilities because there's literally no other options. And so I think because of scarcity, there's an increased chance of logistical settling. And that's so shitty and unfair and really frustrating, I think, as just being like in any minority group, you know? But it's just something I'm like coming to terms with. And I think a lot about like U-hauling with lesbians and like the concept of settling and staying in like toxic relationships, and that so much of it is logistical, and so much of it is like a result of political and like social homophobia. And because I don't like when people make jokes about U-hauling, I just don't really find it funny. Unless you are a lesbian, I don't find it funny because I think it's a side effect of a greater issue, of an oppressive issue. And so it's just not funny to me. And scarcity really does impact our ability to act with complete, I think, I don't know if I would say reasoning, but with the same detached reasoning that you can have when you are in the majority. But that aside, something else that I'm struggling with is, this video is really not having a through line. But another thing that I'm struggling with is that, you know, I don't really have a lot of experience as this version of myself that isn't like deeply traumatized and walking through the world every day like impacted by that trauma. I worry that this is like not real and it's fake, and then like the other shoe's gonna drop and I'm gonna go back to being really dysregulated and like freaked out and driven by trauma and these very significant, like often overwhelming negative emotions. And because I'm not, and I've never existed in a way that wasn't, it's just like, what if it's fake? Like, what if it's not real? What if I'm not going to stay this way? And like, that's also confusing to me. It almost makes me start to wonder, like, is this okay? Like, am I actually really this version of myself, this new version that isn't, just feels like really kind of like severely traumatized all the time? Like, can I actually continue to live this way and as this person, or is it going to be like ripped from me at any moment because it's all fake and like a facade that I'm putting on? I don't know. That's probably like my OCD, you know, similarly to how with OCD you'll be like, maybe I'm a terrible person and it's all a facade and I'm tricking everyone into thinking I'm actually a good person, but I'm actually a terrible person. I think it's kind of similar. Like, it's like, maybe my healing is all a facade that I put on and I'm not actually healed, and like I'm just tricking myself, and eventually it's going to come through and I'm going to realize I'm not healed. Anyways, I think that's like it. I think that's what I'm struggling with, and I can hear a lawnmower outside, which is annoying me, so I guess I should probably stop talking. But I just wanted to talk about this I honestly don't know if I'm going to upload this, but this is the first video actually that I've been able to really get through in weeks. So maybe I will. I seriously have not been able to get through anything. I sit and then I just feel like I can't speak. I worry that nothing I'm saying makes any sense, or it's not coming from a place that's relatable any longer, because it's a different version of myself, and maybe that version is just not going to be useful in the same way. So I'm trying to push through that, and maybe that is just going to be this. I don't know. But I guess we'll see. So I guess I'll just stop talking. I'll end it here. If I do upload this, I hope maybe it's if anyone watches this, I don't know, because this video probably doesn't make any fucking sense. I hope maybe if you've ever felt this way with any kind of identity crisis, you just know you're not alone in any kind of identity crisis that comes with like healing or changing after having been something for so long, whether it's like an unmedicated version of yourself, or a version of yourself that was heavily impacted by trauma, or a version of yourself that existed, like pre-existed, maybe really intense grief if you've lost someone. Whatever it is, if you've ever felt any sort of split in identity that is really confusing and in a lot of ways isolating or just disorienting, I just hope you know that you're not alone in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know what the rest of my life like is going to look like in a lot of ways, and I don't know what a week from now will look like, because I just have a harder time predicting my own like life at this point, not in some major way, but just daily way. But I do know that as you continue to live in any after in your life, like any after something that really changed you, and you are going into the world and experiencing the world now in a different way because you've been fundamentally changed, so the way that you see the world will be changed in a lot of ways, or you walk through the world. I do know that like with every single second that you're alive, you collect so many little moments and experiences, both big and small, that will then forge and form an actual sense of self solely as a consequence of continuing to exist and continuing to experience both big and small things. And so you'll collect memories that you'll then be able to look back on and identify with this version of yourself. And so you'll have a sense of self, like a collected sense of self to recall and like refer to when you think about yourself. And you'll have like a collection of your own reactions to refer to, like you'll have lived long enough to react to things in the world again as this new version of yourself, and that'll teach you things about yourself, and you develop a new sense of self-awareness, and you'll come back into whoever you become or whoever you have become simply by continuing to exist as that thing. And I know that that's what will happen. I'm not like depressed or afraid of that. It's just I'm confused, I guess, and I know that I'm just not going to feel the same as I used to, and that's okay, but that's going to change the way that I connect to things and my attachment to things that I was attached to when I was just a different version by myself, driven by different emotions and different things, and maybe even sometimes the way that I speak about things. I don't know, and I hope that it still can be helpful, but I worry that I'm losing that helpfulness that maybe being driven by those hard emotions had. So this is me just being honest about it, I suppose. I'm worried I will not be so, I don't know, value or use, I guess. I don't know, because I don't feel worthless. It's just a very different feeling. But I suppose I should be honest about it. So that's what I'm doing. That's the point of this video, I guess. And thank you for watching. If you did watch this, I really appreciate it. Means a lot to me, and so much of what has like led me to this point where I'm even having this identity crisis, which I'm so lucky to have an identity crisis built from healing. That is the greatest privilege that I could have ever asked for, truly. Like, I'm so grateful for it, despite how disorienting it is. I'm so thankful and grateful, and I've said this in so many videos. I have a whole video talking about this, saying like thank you, but truly the final like thing after all of the work I'd done in my life, like going to therapy and trying all this like self-excavative analysis and stuff, the thing that like truly did help me turn like a new leaf in my life and feel genuinely like a healed version of myself, like I could live in an after of someone who's driven by a lot of pain, was this and this community, and having the opportunity and the privilege to be able to speak about things, about myself and my own like self-analysis that I was like trying to come to terms with, and to be able to hear your own experiences and your own self-analysis and like your thoughts on things like related to the things I've said, or just like the way you've connected them to your life. Like I cannot explain enough how much that has completely and forever changed me in a way that I just can't put into words, but it's led me to this place. And this is the best place I could ever ask to be, even though I'm confused, because it means I get to live a life that isn't just driven by the same emotions that were so heavy for so long. Even if I found a way to make use of them, I still didn't want to live with them forever. So the fact that I'm not is like the greatest gift, and it is because of you. And so I just hope you know, like if you've watched my videos, if you've engaged in them in literally any way, any kind of comment, if you've sent me a message, shared your own story, shared your thoughts, just anything at all, just know that you've had an immeasurable impact on someone, and that is me, and probably other people who have read it. If it has been like a public comment, I always get people who tell me that the comments really impact them in positive ways, make them feel less alone. But just know that no matter what, if you've shared anything in any way about yourself, like you have changed me, and I am so grateful always. So I just want to end it saying that. So thank you, and thank you for listening to this or watching this, even if maybe I'm losing some relatability, I don't know. And okay, yeah, I'm gonna end it here before I just keep rambling, but I'm glad I was able to make something at all. Thank you for watching, and if you have any thoughts on this, as always, anything related to this, or quite literally anything at all ever, please feel free to share them here if you feel comfortable, like in the comments below. If it's something you feel comfortable sharing in any way, shape, or form, I moderate them really heavily, the comments, just so that nobody feels unsafe sharing them. I promise, like I will make sure that nobody is making it an unsafe space or inflammatory space. So just know that if you do share, like you will be protected in that sharing. But if you don't feel comfortable sharing here, and there's something you do want to talk about related to this or anything else, always feel free to send it to me directly, anonymously or not. I'd be honored to read it. I have my email down below. I also have like published things that people have written, and if you would like something published anonymously or not, I can do that, and that'll be down below. And other people have pieces published, so if you're interested, you can read those, or a video piece. You can also send me a video. I have another YouTube channel with video submissions. That's just like a heads up. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for watching, for giving me the time of day to talk. I hope this could maybe at the very least be entertaining, but I really appreciate it. I am so forever grateful to be a part of this community, and just know that if you ever want to share anything, that this platform is just as much yours as it has ever been mine, and it will always be that way. So I'm so lucky to have been healed by being able to be a part of this platform. So I hope you can use it to the same, or take the same advantage of it, because it is just as much yours. So, okay, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'm wishing you nothing but the happiest and most wonderful and amazing moments and experiences that you could ever have, always. So, okay, thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.